Hey everybody, you were listening to Dillon Atkins We Can Save America, and I am Dillon Atkins. Alright, hello. I am Dillon Atkins. Thank you for joining me again. We have a lot of interesting things out there. One would be the blood moon. Two, Clive and Bundy and the Fed ordeal is continuing to go on now in the courts, though. Putin continuing to flex his muscles in Ukraine, and here in the state of Alabama, and, well, actually across the country, we have gays using the tax season for certain leverage. We'll get to that. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is the blood moon. The blood moon happened on the 15th. And I didn't get to see it because, of course, when anything cool and interesting happens in the sky, it is cloudy wherever I am, and I don't get to see it. But I did get to see pictures, and it was very, very cool. But let's look at what that can mean. Me being a Christian, of course, I read the Bible, obviously, and I know some of what this can mean. But there's a lot of speculation about what it means. There's obviously the reason for it, which is it's a lunar eclipse. The Earth gets in the way of the sun then casts a shadow on the moon turns red. But in the Bible, there's a certain little area there that talks about when the moon turns to blood. Now, obviously, the moon isn't going to turn to blood. It'll just turn the color of it. But, so there's a lot of speculation. There's some people saying all it is a lunar eclipse. It means nothing. And then there obviously are people like a lot of my friends and even me. I'm kind of waiting to see. But I obviously lean towards the idea that it is prophecy being fulfilled for Jesus' return. There is another one happening in... I cannot remember the date, but it is within a year or so from the 15th. I think it's September of 2015. I'm not quite sure. Either way, the last time there was, they call it a tetrad, when there are 4 lunar eclipses like that. And there was a one on the 15th. There's going to be one coming up, and there's 2 more. But whenever there's a tetrad like that and this close proximity, something interesting happens in Israel. Oddly enough, being God's chosen people, just saying. But I think the last time that the tetrad happened was when Israel was declared a nation. The time before when this happened, Israel was freed from Spain, so the idea that this could be another prophecy being fulfilled towards the end of time here is obviously something that is in the forefront of a lot of people's minds. Some people pay it no mind. Some people kind of skeptical. Some people obviously are, Jesus is coming tomorrow. As for me, I kind of look at it as, hey, if I get to go home, finally. But if I don't, then, if today isn't the day, if tomorrow isn't the day, if next year isn't the day, I will get to go home eventually, whether by Jesus coming again or by my death. Either way, I get to go home. I look at it, a lot of people try to speculate. A lot of people try to speculate about what the Bible says. What does theology say about this? Or what is God really trying to say in this? And, to me, it just confuses me. And, I've been a Christian my entire life. And yeah, of course I've messed up, but I try to study and know what God's saying. And, I've come to the conclusion that I'm never going to know exactly what God means. And to be quite honest with you, if I even care when I get to heaven at the sight of God, if I even care what my thoughts on this earth were, I'll ask Him. But I am not worried about what theology says about this, or what did God mean when he said this. I'm worried about what God tells me. And that's, to me, there is a little bit of, I don't quite know the word for it, for the moon turning red, but there's a little bit of suspicion in terms of, there's something bigger than it's just a lunar eclipse. So that's my take on it. Your take could be something completely different, and if it is, hey, I'd love to hear about it. I'm quite sure that my email address, dillonforamerica@gmail.com, will show up on the screen at some point during this podcast. Until then, we are going to move on, and that is on to Cliven Bundy and the federal BLM, Bureau of Land Management, who has been trying to strong arm him into giving up his ranch in Nevada. Now, one thing that has to be noted about this, in the spirit of fairness and looking at both sides here, is that they have been trying to get him to pay grazing tax on his cattle for the past 20 years, since 1993. They've been battling him in the courts for 20 years, and he never did pay. So now they have kind of moved. Now what's been going on the last week or so was them trying to get the money out of him, so they say. I have no problem with them getting money out of him if he owes it, and I believe he does. That's absolutely okay. Courts are fine. Here is the issue that I have, is when you roll on somebody's area here that his family's been on since 1871, or the 1870s, and you try to force him off of it. We have to be careful here, because there is something that is known as, trying to remember the name of it. Anyway, basically what it is that when you've been on a piece of land, or you've been in an area for a certain amount of years, I think it's 70 years, you then become the owner of it. I think 1870s kind of counts as the 70 years. So that's kind of what he's saying, because they're also trying to take the land from him if he wasn't going to pay, which I understand. But rolling up on this guy's family in his area here, that his land that he's on, and his homes, his house and such, coming in there with a full 250 person SWAT team with snipers and armed helicopters seems a bit much. Just a scotch, I'm thinking that maybe a nice knock on the door and, hey, Mr. Bundy, we would like to speak with you in person about this, if you wouldn't mind. Not, hey, we're going to shoot you and tase your son and tackle your daughter. So I think that was a bit much. And also my question is, why in the world does the dadgum Bureau of Land Management have a SWAT team and the helicopters with guns? Are they going to shoot a rabid elk? Or are they going to shoot the random drunk guy who accidentally shot a deer? What is it for? And if they are going after those kind of people, why in the world do they need a SWAT team to do it? I'm pretty sure one guy with one stun gun can do the job just well. Just swimmingly. Just splendid. I mean, I don't understand what the idea here was. I have a speculation. Harry Reid, Senate Majority Leader, who is from Nevada, who was elected in Nevada, I have an idea he has something to do with it, seeing as he appointed as the BLM's head honcho was one of his former staffers, who was all of 35, to be the head of the BLM. And then Cliven Bundy gets raided, basically. Now, to add on to it, they were not exactly nice with protesters. They tased protesters, tackled protesters, beat protesters, and they stole Mr. Bundy's cattle. They inflicted a lot of damage on Mr. Bundy's house, or on his buildings. That had to do with the cattle that he has on the farm that he has, and such as they shot a watering reservoir, basically that emptied it. A lot of broken pipes on buildings that they obviously need. And it just seems as though it was kind of, you can say that, we don't really want to do this. It's Harry Reid or whoever that is telling us to do this. But if that were so, which is what some people are speculating, if that were so, then you wouldn't do the things that you did. You would no, I'm not doing that. That's not morally right. I'm not going to tase some guy because he's exercising his rights. That isn't right. That is oppression of freedom of speech. And under the Constitution, under the Bill of Rights, that isn't right. We have freedoms. We all are created equal, and we have freedoms. And it seems as though those freedoms are starting to disappear slowly, day by day. Speaking of that, you can kind of roll that into Vladimir Putin continuing to do some irritating things over in not Crimea. We already lost that one. In the Ukraine, and that would be he has been having one of their actually Cold War prop plane bombers that has been sitting for a very long time, buzzing American battleships in the ocean, just over and over and over, just buzzing right across the top of them, basically just to irritate the people on the boat, on the ship. And not only that, that's more just kind of irritating. That's kind of, I think, trying to instigate Obama in America into saying, hey, you're going to do something? You're going to do something? You're going to do something? No, you're probably not, so I'm going to do it again. Because he knows, first of all, that Obama's weak and he's not going to do anything. No matter how much we want him to, he's probably not going to do it. But second thing that he's been doing, or second thing that happened, rather, is a little bit, I don't know, kind of disappointing for me in terms of how the Ukraine troops handled it. Russian troops basically went up to armed personnel carriers that Ukraine has and said, hey, y'all get out. These are ours now. And basically Ukrainian soldiers just said, okay, we'll get out. And that's what they did. And then the Russian troops raised the Russian flag over the armed personnel carriers and rode through a town, kind of, in a we've done it, kind of a fashion, and, basically just trying to get people aware of we're still moving. We're not sitting still. We're, because the kind of media coverage has kind of gone away on it a little bit. So I think Putin is just trying to say, hey, we're not going away yet. We're not stopping. We're not going to quit. We're not going to give in to what the UN, what America wants. We are going to push, and we're going to get in Ukraine. And when we get there, we're not going to stop there. I personally think they're not going to stop there. Putin is a former KGB guy, Soviet Union person, when he was in the military in those days. And that's what he grew up with. That's what he likes. Mother Russia, baby, all the way. That's what he's thinking. That's what he's saying. He wants Russia to be the head of the world. The powerhouse, the strongest country on the face of the planet. And he knows right now is a perfect time to try and get that back because Obama ain't going to do anything. America was Russia's biggest threat. With anyone else in office, it would be. Well, not anyone, but you get what I mean. It would be a big threat. But with Obama in office right now, it's not going to be much of a threat at all. It's not going to be anything. Obama has proven that he's not going to stand up to Vladimir. He's not going to try and stop the troops. He's not going to aid Ukraine in any way. He's going to talk a big game. He's going to draw a bunch of lines in the sand. And when Putin decides to move, Obama's going to say, well, we tried everything we can. We can't do anything else. How about drop a bomb on him? That'd be a pretty good start, I think. I'm a big fan of bombs, not just because they make a big boom, but because by subduing one enemy, and as you know, we as America have a lot of enemies, but in America, if you take one enemy and teach them a lesson, you just taught a lesson to every other enemy that this country has. Because they're all watching. There's one guinea pig that they will send out and say, you go do what you do, and we're going to see how they react. And if they react weakly, we're going to jump on the bandwagon and go with you. If they act strongly, you're on your own. And Russia's like, great. Sounds good to me. So they go for it. And we are proving to every one of our enemies that we are not going to stand up for the people we said we would stand up for. No matter how much the people say that's what we want, it doesn't matter because the government doesn't want that. It doesn't want that at all. It wants the government we have right now, the people we have in power right now, want power and money and no freedom for the people because freedom for the people means less power and money for the people in charge. Isn't hard to figure out. When you hear them talk, it's pretty much common sense to say they don't like America. They don't like its people. They like the power and they like the money. And that's what you end up with, is a country that we are becoming, which is weak, no matter how strong the people may be. The country, the government, the military has had its hands tied behind its back because the government doesn't want it to be effective. That's all I have on that subject. I'm going to move on now to gays using tax season as a weapon. Basically, it's a very simple concept. To say, as America, that someone is not equal is almost blasphemous in some people's eyes. So what people are doing, what people in the gay community are doing, is to declare to declare or try and force equality. They are going through state governments one by one and using tax season as their leverage. They are going in because if they can file their taxes jointly, then there was one couple I think that saved $1,000, something like that. So, but if they file separately, they don't get that. So they're trying to say that doing their taxes separate or being forced to file their taxes separate is a form of discrimination. And they are the state of Alabama is trying to find a way to say no, because we do not recognize gay marriage here legally. So therefore, we cannot accept your taxes being filed jointly because you're technically not legally married here. So what they're doing is by using taxes, they are trying to make and by saying that it's discrimination, trying to make gay marriage legal in Alabama. And they're doing this all over the country, and there's been several states that have fallen to it, and there has been several states that have actually been able to resist it. So basically, that's up to your own opinion on that. What is it, should they be able to be legally married or should they not? If not, should they be able to file their taxes together? Or if they're not, should they not be allowed to? To me, it's up to you guys. I want to hear from you guys on what you think. So anyway, that's all I have for you today. I tried to keep it short, but I actually went over by about 5 minutes, but I guess that's all right. Thank you again for listening. Please give me your feedback and your ideas on what I talked about and your opinions on what I talked about at dillonforamerica@gmail.com. See you guys next time.